Okay, so now we're going to work on these leaves that are still on the branches in the winter that have ice and snow on them. And fortunately, we live in an area close to Niagara Falls, so we can go up to the falls and everything's ice coated up there. So it was kind of a nice day to take a bunch of pictures. But I do want to just talk about the composition a little bit. There's a lot going on in this, and I wanted to kind of eliminate that and simplify it a little bit. So if you just kind of look at the whole, this is what I really want to focus on, and we're going to do the background. But if you look at this picture, and if I just put my hand over this section of the photo, you can see that those other leaves just kind of pop out. And when I take my hand away, you don't need to see that message. There's just a lot going on. So when I drew my
yeah, I didn't draw all the leaves. Yeah,
I didn't draw all the leaves in, and like I said, I draw kind of light. So I just kind of took those two main branches that were coming down, and I put 1, 2, 3 on the one on the right hand side, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 on the left hand side. So even on that one that's coming straight down, I didn't want too much busyness there either. So
yeah,
this is the first step.
Yeah, this is what I did. I don't know if you can see it.
Hold on a second.
Can you see it?
Then I wanted to just kind of play with my colors to make sure that I wouldn't put anything on my paper that I didn't really like. So when you look at the leaves, you've got some actually on the tops of some of them, some pretty, those golden yellows. So I don't want you to have to go out and buy all these new colors. So I just took some of the ones that I have on my palette or ones that I've decided I want to start using up. So some of these yellows that you could use would be raw sienna, yellow ochre, quin gold, and new gamboge. New gamboge is a color you have to be careful of because every manufacturer has a different color for new gamboge. And I think this is the Winsor Newton one again. They lightened it up a little bit more. It's very similar to Quin Gold. I would choose one of these two over these. They just seem a little bit more luminous to me. I don't know if that's coming through on the video, but then for the next colors, again, I've got a bunch of different burnt siennas for that medium kind of brown color. So this was a Mission, Daniel Smith, and Winsor Newton. Those are all burnt sienna. Then I had one that was called Burnt Orange, which is Daniel Smith, which is a nice color. I'd probably use some of that today.
Yeah, I did that burnt sienna. I didn't have burnt orange, but I had burnt sienna.
Okay.
I have ripe sienna too, so I have enough of those colors.
And then if to get those really dark edges for the ones that are basically dying, I just wanted to put a little bit of an edge on some of these. So I've got the burnt umber I just used, and I chose Payne's gray. You could use indigo. It looks a little blue or green on here, but if you put enough on, it'll get dark enough. And if you didn't have those two colors, you can take some burnt sienna with dioxin violet, the dark purple, and you'll get a nice brown with that too. So we'll try a mixture of a bunch of these things, but I just wanted to let you know this is what my color palette is going to be for these leaves. And I'll leave these kind of up here so they're here. This is going to be a little bit more of a fussier painting. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to enlarge my reference. I'm going to start with this one that's on the first branch coming down to the right. And what I'll do is I'm going to have to do it in sections because I don't want the paints to run between the inside and the outside. This leaf is really curved. So I'm going to start just wetting this part of the leaf, but I'm going to leave where the ice is not wet.
Are you using a round?
I am using a round. It's a 10, but depending on how big your painting is or that you're working on, you could use a smaller or a larger brush. So that's, I'm gonna just start, like this is a little bit lighter. I'm gonna work with some Quin Gold because that is one of my favorite colors. You can see it's pretty bright yellow. I'm just gonna get some of that in and let it work its magic on the paper. And kind of get in there and get some of those edges. And then rather than cleaning this brush off, I'm just gonna get another one. I've got a bunch that are in that size range. So I'm gonna get, I guess maybe I'll try some of that burnt orange. Or you could use the burnt sienna here. I'll just try some of the burnt orange and see how that works next to it. I'm just gonna lay this in.
You know, I gotta clean this by ochre
Next
out
to.
because I got the color in there. I got like a red in there. Gotta get it.
I'm just gonna let that work in next to it on that first section. And then, because there are some really nice veins on this, this is what I always tell my students, you're gonna have to get a very expensive tool, which is a paper clip. And the paper clip, if you just, and I'll hold this up so you can see it. I'm just going to put in some of the veins, and with the paper clip, it's just gonna scratch. I don't wanna dig into the paper, but I'm just gonna kind of scratch it, and you'll see the paint will just kind of go into those veins, these lines that I'm making, and it'll give a really nice definition for the veins. And then you won't have to worry about going in later and painting in like we did with the poinsettia. So now I'm going to have to let this one dry. So I'm going to move down, because if I try to do the interior of this one, or this little piece here that's lifted up, the yellows and these colors will kind of just merge in. So I don't want to do that. The one that's completely kind of under that, I didn't draw in, so I'm working on the next one down. This one has a really dark interior, and it's more of that burnt sienna on the edges. So again, there's a lot of ice. And because this side is much smaller, I think I'm just going to use a smaller flat brush to wet this to kind of get this in. Actually, I did draw in where the ice was, so I can kind of go up into that. Here, I'll just try some burnt sienna this time. Paints are drying out already. It's one of those days. So just kind of swoop it in there, let the paint move on the paper by itself.
Which one are you doing now? You're doing this second.
It's like the one that's kind of tucked under. I did not draw in, so this would be this one right here.
Okay, all right.
So I didn't draw in this little one that's kind of tucked behind. I
didn't either. Yeah, I didn't either.
So now
So what are you using there? I kind of got.
I'm using some burnt sienna. I'm just kind of mix it up today to keep it, get some different colors in. Starting with burnt sienna, but again, it's really dark up near the top of that. So I'll probably then switch to, maybe I'll put in some burnt umber near the top, darken that up. A little bit down there. And then the same with this, I'm going to get this, this is curled. So I'm going to actually roll, kind of curve the veins to show that that one's kind of going around. And let's see what's going on the inside. Again, I want to keep the inside of that one. I didn't draw that one in between that one and the one that's cone shaped, so I can go right down to the cone shaped one and do the same thing. There's a lot of colors on this. This cone one is really pretty. So I'm going to get in here and wet. One thing about your brush holding on to some color sometimes is that you don't necessarily, you can kind of see where the water is. So it's kind of nice in this case. So I've got a little bit of a light water. I'm reserving where the ice is. And then here, again, I'll start with some Quin Gold. up near the edges. And move right into some burnt sienna. And then you can see it's got, like I said, this dark edge along here. You could use the burnt umber. I'm going to kind of do a mix of the burnt umber and the Payne's gray. I don't necessarily think I want it completely black, but this nice dark brown. And it's kind of, the edge is, you know, really old looking, you know, he had a long year, this poor little leaf. So it's, you can kind of show that, get some divots in there. And even start going along this inner edge here where.
Would you have did some masking on this?
You could. You know what? I don't love masking. I do it occasionally, and every time I do it, I say, I should just paint around. The problem with masking is that, you know, you get those hard edges, and then it looks like you put masking on. Here, you still have some soft edges, some hard edges where the paint is going. So, I don't know. You could definitely mask if you wanted to. I want this just a little bit darker there. If you plan ahead and think about it, you should be able to, and you know, don't work too fast. You can remember to reserve those whites. So now I've got those three, and thing that's kind of nice is the leaves are different colors on the branch, and I've got a nice variety even on my paper. The top one's a little bit lighter, which actually would probably be because it's going to be closer to daylight, and as you get underneath, they're going to get darker. So I've got a nice variety coming here. So let's go back to that top one, because that should be dry enough now, and I can start getting the next round of colors in. So since there's a little like flip on the bottom, which is the same colors as the side here. So that was, I think it was just, and it's a little area, so I'm not going to, well, yeah, I'm going to wet it. I'll just get it wet there a little bit.
How did you say like you pinned it? Because I'm having a hard time seeing what you're doing.
Okay, hold on a second. All right, so because these colors are very consistent, I started with a little Quinn, and then
that didn't work. That didn't work. Hold on.
Okay, so now, like I said, we're gonna start doing these inner parts. This little flip over here. I'm gonna finish getting some a little bit darker stuff under the bottom part. And that kind of dried a little bit. And then same with this, there's a little bit of the darkness where it's kind of this edge here. Oh, and look at those. I can make some nice dark edges. Actually, the whole back side of this little flip is kind of burnt. It must probably be where the center vein is. So do that. A little bit hard edge there, so I'm just going to take my damp, clean brush and just kind of soften that a little bit. I don't want that real hard edge. All right, so that's a little flip. Then on the inside, there's a lot of ice in there also. So, and it is coming down from the center. Now the inside is actually, there's not much gold on there at all. So I'll probably just start, maybe just put a little bit of gold up in here just to unify it, but I'll probably just go on and continue with darker colors. Painting around or wetting around where all that ice is. And then maybe a couple dots of Quin Gold here and there, not too much. I'll move right into that burnt orange color that I've got, or burnt sienna, if that's what you've got. Just kind of letting the paint do its thing. I don't have to, you know, get in there and brush all that much. And then down the center where that vein is, I'm going to just kind of get in there with some, I think, burnt umber. And then while it's wet, I also have to get in there with my paper clip because I want to keep that. And it's really dark down here. So let me get some of this in. And then a little bit of that tail is also really dark right down there. Let me switch over and find my paper clip. So I'm going to go right from the stem. And it's not down the center, it's kind of offset there because it's so curled up. And then from there, just get a few of those veins in. And actually, I think you can see it really kind of nicely here, how the paper clip kind of, yeah, that one worked out really nice. You can see how the paper clip just let that paint kind of suck into those scratch marks. Then I'll take some of this dark Payne's Gray, get back down there in the bottom where that little curvy thing is, call it the little tail. As long as the paper's damp, you can continue to add paint. Once it starts drying, then that's where you get the hard edges. Kind of just get a couple of those. This, you know, like I said, the leaves are so old, you can put in some, dabble in some dark specks at this point. And I think I'm gonna just get a little bit more color in there. It's starting to dry too light for me. So along this edge, just kind of get in some more of this. Let me get some more. The only thing is when you keep adding, you don't want it to get muddy. So don't mix your colors too much on the paper. You just want to keep adding the paints, but you don't want to go swirl them together because you're not going to get that color distinction among them all. And even this one is looking a little bit faded to me. So I'm going to carefully go in and kind of just glaze in some burnt sienna just to pop this color a little bit on the outside of that. Just a real light mix. And you'll see that it'll just kind of pop all those up a little bit more. Okay, so that one, sure.
I was gonna tell you, and I've been doing the oil painting, and
Yeah.
I'm having such a hard time on the canvas because when you stroke it, like here, you can make.
All right, so let's move down to this other one that's really curled up. It's got the more burnt sienna color on it, and Actually, so I probably could have done the other side of this. So maybe I should do that before I do the inside. Um, as I'm looking at the picture, I actually think that that's 2 leaves there too, but I drew it as 1. Um, and I just drew this last night, so I don't know if I did that intentionally or if I just didn't see didn't see the picture good enough. So I am going to get in here, do um, some of this leaf, leave some of that icy section there in the center where the 2 cups, these 2, they're kind of forming a V. This side is curling and there's ice on the top part and on this side. So again, I think I used the, oh, I think it was burnt sienna. And let's get, yeah, burnt sienna.
Maggie said she's not feeling good. That's why she didn't join in.
Okay.
So she said she didn't want to disrupt the class. She's not feeling good.
Okay. All right, so there's water there. Get that in, and then I don't know, I guess it was a little burnt umber I put on the top of this, so keep those consistent. And then a little bit of, I think I could use a little bit of darkness on the side of this one. I like doing, when I'm doing leaves, getting 3 or 4 colors in there because I think it just gives it more depth. You can get kind of the feel for what those leaves are doing. It's kind of like when you're doing, you know, like you're doing color for the first time and you're doing a light, dark, and medium, like if you're doing an apple or a ball or something like that, trying to show the, you know, shadow side or whatever. I just, you know, I always use a light, medium, and dark, and that's kind of what I do with all of my, try to get at least 3 colors in there to show some variation. All right, so I'm going to let that dry. I'll go back down to this third one now. And actually the same with this one. I've got the other side I need to do, but there's a lot of ice on there, so there's not too much painting. Let me just get this wet. It's like the top almost only about halfway down that leaf because the rest of it's ice. And here I use some brighter color, so I've got some, a little bit of this yellow in there. Looks like burnt orange. Just putting the colors next to each other, and you know, there's water there, so the paint will merge together. And you can see when you let them touch that dark shadow or that dark line I put in before actually does show that this is kind of overlapping the other side. So that's nice. And then we'll get in, you know, the top of this one is pretty dark, like on the other side. So we're going to get some of this dark color. And let that kind of go in. Again, just get that, if you remember, get your paper clip and get some of those curved lines. Just kind of show the vein, and that really does give you some shape and depth to it. This one turned out nice too. You should be able to see just a little paper clip really gives that what it needed. That's turning out really nice. All right, I'll go back to the center one here now. And again, the insides are going to be pretty dark. So, and how much ice? There's not a lot of ice on the inside of this one, a little bit toward the top. So I'll leave a little bit of white or a little bit dry. Remember, if you don't have, if it's not wet, the paint won't go there. Maybe just go down to there. All right, what should we do here? So we've already got the burnt sienna. I'll just start with, I'm going to start with the deeper color, so that burnt orange color. But if you're using a burnt sienna, just use less water and you'll get a deeper tone. So I'm going to start with this, get in there. It's pretty dark. I'm going to go right in. I'm not even going to clean off my brush, get some deeper burnt umber. You're probably saying, well, why are you just painting over what you did? You'll see if the colors will still bleed, you know, not bleed through, but they'll come through. You'll see, like in this one, you can still see the gold, you can still see the sienna, and then you can see the burnt umber on the top of it. And then I'm going to take my flat brush and really get some, kind of get up near that edge and trim my paper a little bit. Just let some of that nice dark color get in there. And again, if you don't have a really dark color, you can make one with your sienna or whatever you were using and mix it with a little dioxin violet. Nice. You know, I just wish always that the watercolor would stay wet, because as soon as it dries, it starts
yeah.
soaking in, and then you have to do some glazing. So again, on the inside of this, there are definitely those veins. So we're going to get some of those in. And I can hit this real quick with some, even though I use the burnt sienna and the burnt umber, I'm still going to hit it with a little bit of Quin Gold. Like I said, it's pretty luminous and it just should make the color underneath pop. So it's not going to change it back to a gold color, but it'll just make what's already there pop up a little bit more. So a little bit of Quin Gold on top. And look at that. Luscious. Starting to look, oh yeah, and even in the photo it looks, at least on my camera, it looks pretty good. Okay. Look at, very nice. And actually I probably, to get this edge to pop, I'm actually gonna kind of get in there and get some really dark stuff, because I think it's pretty dark down there. And that should make these, yeah, see, it already made those pop up a little bit. And then the same with this one, we'll just go in and there's a huge chunk of ice in there. It looks like an ice cone. And I'll go in and kind of with the same with this, make it pretty dark. There's, I don't know, start with the burnt orange. Oh, there's too much water there. Sometimes, you know, that's the thing too, is you're trying to get that fine balance between the amount of water and amount of paint. If you have too much paint or too much water, you can just take, you know, a damp brush and just soak some of it up, or a paper towel. Some people like to dip the edge of the paper towel in there and soak it up. So we got the orange. I'm going to put in the burnt umber on top of that. Here, here, and here. And then finish it with some Payne's Gray. Again, if you have indigo, Payne's Gray is really the next color past indigo as far as the dark goes. So a lot of people do have indigo. It may look green initially, but if you just keep adding enough, it'll turn to the dark, add more browns to it. And then a little bit of this I am gonna get just some of that. Now this, on the top edge of this, there is ice. So I left a little bit where I drew a little bit of the edge where the ice is gonna be. So if you put your stem in, don't go through the ice. You want to put that stem in above the ice. So I'm just going to get that stem in kind of started. So this is the basic method for doing these leaves. I'm going to stop here and let you work on the other side. And then when we come back, we'll start doing, getting these ice shadows in to make it look like ice, and we'll do the branches. So we'll do the branches and the shadows. But right now I'm going to let you work on the rest of the leaves. And then once those are done, we'll decide, we'll talk about the background and what we'll do with that. Okay, so we should have your leaves pretty much done without worrying about the snow yet or the ice. So I'll just kind of move this up so you can kind of get an idea of the color variations and all those leaves and the shapes. This was a lot of fun. Now the branches are pretty thin, so you're going to want to move to a smaller brush. And basically, we're going to wet it, an area. So I'll start up here. And I'm just going to apply paint to one edge and kind of just tilt the paper just a little bit to let the color dissipate to the other side, because the ice is all on the other side.
Are you wetting it first?
I'm going to wet it first. Yes, I'm going to just do a part at a time. Like I said, it's a small area. So make sure this brush is clean. Yeah, make sure your brushes are clean. You might want to make sure you have clean water. And so I'm going to wet the whole area coming down to that first leaf, and even the side little branch off there. See if we can get that to work, although there's a lot of ice on there. All right, and then the branches here, I'm looking at the color. They're really a variation of a bunch of these colors. So even if you wanted to just start with, I'm not going to go too light, so I'll start with some of that orangey color, and maybe I'll just kind of get some of that brown and just kind of go along that edge. We're going to get a little bit of color in so that it's going to fill up. And hopefully it'll flow.
Are you using a flat brush or?
I am using a flat brush.
Okay.
And you can vary it. It doesn't have to be a solid line of one color. So I've got a little bit of that burnt sienna color. And so you can see how it's dissipating, and that's just what we want right now. So it's kind of moving on its own. And I'm actually, you could tilt the paper if you're not getting flow. I've got a nice flow there, and I don't want to ruin that. And on the there's a little branch off there. I'm going to wet that next and get that section done. Oops, that's a little bit too much water. Again, just kind of get a little bit of color on there. So next, we're going to let this dry completely, and then we'll come back in and we're going to do the, oh yeah, this turned out really nice. We'll get the ice formations next week. So you should have at least half of the branch should be white. And if it starts dissipating too much, like I have a little bit too much here, if I just put a little drop of water at the top of that, it'll push that paint back down. So anything that you think it's starting to move too far into that white, just hit it with a little drop of water. Hit it right there, and it'll push it back. So if it's not flowing enough, you can put a little bit of water at that edge and tilt your paper. If it's moving too much, just, I might have to hold this like this for a minute to keep it down near that edge. have a little bit of patience with this. All right. Again, make sure your brush is clean. You want to keep it as white as possible up there. And then if I move down along the edge, all of these branches have a lot of ice on them. So same thing, you're going to wet and apply a minimal amount of paint. So I'm going to work on, I'm actually holding my paper sideways now. You could work on a angle board too if you wanted to. Kind of get that, these branches wet. And just a little bit of paint. So again, a little bit of that burnt orange, a little bit of burnt umber, and just kind of tap it in there a little bit. You don't have to follow the picture 100% either. Yeah, this is still moving a little bit too close to the edge with the on the top part. You just have to keep forcing that down. And then down here, just touch it in here and there. I did make some of my stems pretty dark, so I might have to just extend some of the Payne's gray up into these edges a little bit. All right, I think you can continue working on that. And then doing the other side, you can see that I don't have as much paint down here because these branches are really thin and they're really coated with ice. So probably less is more down here. The larger one on the other side has a pretty good, there's quite a bit of branch showing on this one. So again, I'm going to keep, I hate to do this, but I think I might even dab off. I don't always do this, but just keep, I want to keep that white. So I'm just going to dab off some of the brown that, there we go.
The Payne's gray is like dead.
Right, so that's better. So I don't always like to use a paper towel, but if I have to get that paint out of there, I just dabbed off that extra. All right, so work on that and the other side, and we'll be back.